Hello everyone, this is New Vegas Ranger, and we are here with another Talking Thursday. Today we're going to talk about Bioshock. I'm a very big fan of Bioshock, and it's a pretty well liked series in the gaming genre. Like a lot of people really like it, and a lot of people either say they really like Bioshock or Bioshock Infinite. That's the ones people will kind of fight over which one was better. But have you noticed how Bioshock's a trilogy? Where's the second one? Yeah, Bioshock 2 is kind of the black sheep of the group. It didn't, when it came out, it really didn't live up to the expectations that had been set by Bioshock, and it kind of got left to the wayside. No one really talks about it anymore. And a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people really don't like it because it just didn't live up to what Bioshock does, and it's overshadowed by what Infinite has done. So I kind of want to make this video in a little bit of a defense of Bioshock 2 because I think it is actually a lot better game than some people give it credit for. And that's really hard to say because I will fully admit this. It was not as good as Bioshock. It was not. And it does not deserve like the highest praise like Bioshock does. But it doesn't really deserve at the same time the level of this like hatred it's had because it's still a very decent game. I mean, I'm not. It's not great. It's not a masterpiece, but it's decent. Um, so this is kind of. I'm probably gonna do both pros and cons. I'll do cons later because I think they might be more spoiler than the pros. So what do I really like about Bioshock 2? Well, first of all, let's talk about how it's back in Rapture. Rapture was a great setting for a video game. It's probably one of my favorite settings for a game ever made. That world is so unique and so stylized. It's great. And then you go back and see it. And you see what has happened since you were there in the first one. You see what's gone awry. You see how things have decayed and just crumpled and how it's all turned to chaos. And that's a really cool thing to see. See how your actions influence the second game in a really close way. To be honest, other than really the Mass Effect series, I've never really seen a video game series do that, where your effects really actually did affect the world to a massive extent, and it wasn't based on just what your story was. Because actually, no, that's really stupid. Well, actually, okay. Other than Bioshock and Bioshock 2, you don't really see a lot of the how your effects in the first game change the second world a lot. Because yeah, you will say, "Oh, there's a couple of changes here and there," but there's nothing that really impacts the world. There's not a lot of games that do that. I can only really think of Mass Effect and Dragon Age that really do, mostly BioWare games. Those are really the only ones that stick out to me where what you did in the first game really impacts what you do in the next and how the world has changed and how it's been affected by what you've done. That's what Bioshock 2 did. It shows just how much you did. And I think that was really cool of it. Another reason why I like it, you get to learn more about Rapture. I love Bioshock. I do love the first one, but I will flat out say this. There is not a lot of information about the world that is given to you in that game. There's just not. And that's what Bioshock 2 follows up with. Because in the first one, really nothing is ever talked about except for the Francis Fontaine's business getting blown up. That's really the biggest thing that's talked about that happens before you come to Rapture. In the second one, you learn of a civil war that happened, like a big fight and riots in Rapture that has happened that caused Andrew Ryan to become the tyrant he is. And so, yeah, I don't think that was really explained well in the first game. I don't think that means it's bad either, because that was kind of just a little back thing that wasn't really needed to be established like or further established upon. It wasn't really anything important, but it was a nice little add to the setting. It gave the setting more life, and that's what Bioshock 2 did. It gave it more life. You saw how different people acted. You saw how just little insignificant people reacted to the Civil War, Andrew Ryan's takeover, how they all acted. in the first one, a lot of the stuff that you see is very, very connected to either like what Andrews has done. Like with, I remember there was one with there's a person who has their uh, daughter taken away by and gets turned into a little sister. That's something that relates to Andrew. But in the second one, you really don't. You see a lot more. You see you see how people react to the Civil War, what they did before the Civil War. There wasn't as much of that in the first one. I mean, there were a couple of tapes where it talked about people who were going through the Civil War. Like it did talk about, like it said that, it told you there was a Civil War going on, but it never really went in depth. And that's kind of the part where, and that's where Bioshock Two does that. It goes in depth because it pertains to one of the major antagonists of the game. And that actually kind of leads me to my third kind of defense. I won't even say it's a pro or a con. It's more of a defense in the game. And this is one of the major things that came about. A lot of people did not like how Sofia Lamb, the main antagonist of Bioshock 2, she did not live up to Andrew Ryan. And I have kind of two answers to this. One, yeah, you're kind of right. I will fully admit she was not as intimidating in the way Ryan was, but at the same time, she kind of had her own intimidation way. Because where Ryan was a tyrannical overlord, Sophia was more of a cult leader. She had a following behind her. Andrew had to force people to fight for him. Sophia Lamb said, "Kill that guy." People flooded to kill that person. And I think that can be just as intimidating. The fact that she has these people who love her, who want to do anything for her, I think that's just as powerful as a tyrant. So, do I think she's not as intimidating as Ryan? Yeah, I kind of think she is. She may not be as much upfront about it. She may not be as instigating as Ryan, but she is very, very intimidating. She knows the power she has, and she knows how to wield and use it. And also, I think she has more of a reason for not. She has a better reason for not liking the main character because the Big Daddy was the one who protected her daughter, the little sister, when she became a little sister. That kind of puts it on a personal ram. And everybody says nothing is worse than a mother scorned. Yeah, that's kind of true. It's pretty bad because she goes to the ends of the earth to try to get her daughter back, and I think that's a lot. That's scary too. How much she'll go to get her daughter, and so yeah, maybe she doesn't have the philosophicalness or the big symbolism of Andrew Ryan did, but I do think she was a pretty good character. And now here's one of the cons, and this is one of the cons. Other than Sophia Lamb, there's no one memorable, and I will flat out say that right now. There's really not a lot of people that are memorable. I remember Sander Cohen so much. He was such a big, like he was scary. Like he was really scary. Like I was never really scared of Andrew. I wasn't really scared of any of the others. I was scared of Sander Cohen because he was crazy. He was flat out insane. And yeah, and Bioshock 2 kind of ripped this off. I will say this because they took a church leader and did the exact same thing. They made him crazy with his followers, and how they were in so much in love with Sophia Lamb and how they were going to do everything. They tried to do the same thing with the church leader, and it wasn't really as well done because you really didn't learn as much about the church leader. I don't even remember the guy's name. I remember Sandra Cohen's name. I remember, I think it's Peach Williams, uh, the first guy, kind of crazy guy you meet. That's like this. That's the guy that lives in like the fishery. I remember that guy. I remember the woman who you have to go to find in the gardens. I can't remember her name right now, but I know what she looks like. I know what some of her lines were. Uh, like you see, it was like Adam with the. It's like what was it? Adam. It's like the bath nuclear bomb and the snake from the snake in the Garden of Eden and the bathtub gym all in one. I remember that line. So I remember her. I don't remember I don't remember the church guy's name. I really don't even remember what he said that much of. I remember seeing that old like caretaker woman who used to take care of Eleanor Lamb, the daughter. I remember her, but even then, she wasn't too big of a person either. Like, she wasn't really important to the plot of the game. I mean, yeah, she kind of was, but she didn't leave an impact. That's what I'm trying to say. She was important, but didn't leave an impact. So yeah, I will say that Sophia Lamb's minions were not really that good, and that might have been one of the reasons why it was kind of let down. All right, there's another thing I really like about Bioshock 2 is that you have little bit more choice in your actions. Because in the first one, it really didn't matter if you saved or killed the little sisters. It really didn't in the end. I mean, yeah, you kind of got an achievement. It didn't really affect the story too much. In the second one, it does because, and then now we're going to start hitting spoiler territory here. Because in the second one, so Eleanor Lamb learns from your actions and learns how to act from you. So yes, you have a bigger impact on what happens to her. I remember I was saving a bunch of the little sisters and I accidentally killed one. I accidentally killed it. And then I remember getting later on in the game when you meet Eleanor and she kills all the little sisters. I remember that because that was my action that did that. And it stuck with me. And then I played through it again. I saved all of them. I made sure not to kill any, and she saved all of them. So that you have an impact on the game, on what you do. And you can choose to live or die depending on what you want. Even then, that can be affected too. So there was a lot more choice, and there was a little bit more of freedom of what you could do. And a lot of people argue whether or not that was a good or bad thing. I find it was kind of both. I think that's kind of it's a two-sided blade. You get more choice and you give the character you give the person playing more control or over what happens, but at the same time it may affect how the story's told. It may affect it badly. Third major con, and this is something I will legit tell you right now that did piss me off about this game. Pissed me off to no end. I was furious about. They blew up Rapture. They blew up Rapture. They blew it up. Do you know how infuriating that is when you are a fan of this series and you want more made? That they blow up the place, that where it took place. And let me say this. This was before I knew about Infinite. This was before I knew of this great world that they'll put me in. But it made me mad. It made me really mad because I knew at that point there was going to be no sequels. I didn't think there was going to be. And I was right. We got prequels. That's all we can get now. We got Bioshock Infinite. We got Barrel at Sea. That's all we can have now because they blew up Rapture. And why did they do this? Because Sophia just did it. She didn't want Eleanor to see the light of day or some some bull crap like that. So she blows up all of Rapture. That is the worst way of ending the series. That was the worst way to destroy that place. There was no big send off, no exact reason, nothing. They blew it up because there was no really big reason. Yes, she had motivation, but it was a very weak motivation. And that's why it makes me really mad. That this place that I really enjoyed is one of my favorite settings for a video game was killed just because they didn't know how to end a game. Rapture could have easily lived. They could have easily wrote in a way that they got out of Rapture without it blowing up. But they didn't, because they thought that was going to be a good idea. It wasn't. It was not a good idea. And to this day, it still bothers me they did that. And I think that was a really big foul up on their part. So there's my kind of critique of Bioshock Infinite. I know I said it was a pro and con thing, but to be honest, there's a lot wrong with this game. There is. But at the same time, there is a lot good about it. I did like the idea of playing as a big daddy. I did want to go back to Rapture again. So was it a complete letdown in my opinion? No. Does it have its problems? Oh heck yes, it has its problems. But I think if you get yourself immersed in the world, you kind of let these problems go. If you really enjoy this world, you will let it go. Because that's what I've done. I've let I let it go when I was playing. I let all these little minor problems that I didn't really like. Just I let it go because I wanted to see this world. I wanted to see how the characters acted in this world. And so maybe if you leave your suspension of disbelief, maybe if you leave your a little bit of your logic at the doorstep, you'll like it as well. But but I will say this, I do agree that it is the black sheep of the BioShock series because it does not live up to what it was supposed to be. Is it as bad as what I think people make it out to be? No. But yeah, it's not. That's it. I can't talk about this really much anymore because I've talked all I really wanted to talk about this because this is something that did bother me. It bothered me a lot because I was so much a fan of Rapture. I was so much a fan of the first one. But I looked beyond it and I saw some light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what I'm asking you to do with this game as well. And that's it for today. I don't have any channel updates for this video. There's really nothing new going on with the channel at the moment. So this is it. And this is the New Vegas Ranger signing off.